Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and get started with some introductory discussion here. So, first of all, uh, thanks everyone for joining this presentation series. This is a grassroots effort to share knowledge and experience of digital sketching and survey. It started as a conversation last summer at the NSS convention in Sewanee with John Zetterberg. And there have been a number of discussions since then. And this is just the first set of presentations that we think that people might be interested in giving. Um, so this first set runs through June 19th. We'll take some time off for summer break. NSS convention comes the week after this. Series ends. The ICS in Brazil is a few weeks after that. And then hopefully we can pick this back up again in September and just keep going with it. So digital cave survey and sketching has grown tremendously in popularity over the past few years. Probably will continue to do that. And as such, there are lots of people who have stories and experiences that they can share that would be beneficial to others. And so this series of presentations, it's not a prescription, not necessarily best practices. It's just what these folks are willing to talk about and hopefully share with others so that they can learn. But because it's become so popular and so many people are doing it, there are lots of folks who have really good information about digital survey and sketching. So some of them are on this call right now, and we would hope that you would be willing to share in presentations, continue social media posts, communications in the future, because one of the things that I really like about digital survey and sketching is that after an initial learning curve, let's say, it really democratizes cave surveying. It makes it possible for just about anybody to rapidly make a cave map. And I think that that's one of the really attractive aspects of it. So the first presenter that we're going to have in this series is Bert Ashbrook. And Bert has been a project caver for decades. He surveyed and mapped caves everywhere from Hawaii to Transylvania. Although most of his work has been in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, I first met Bert and caved with him in the early 1990s in West Virginia. That was through WEVAX, mostly in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. And we've stayed in touch on and off over the years and recently reconnected over digital survey. And we would like to share what we feel is important about it, mostly that we want to make it to be as efficient as possible and of high quality as possible. Bert's been involved in many caving projects and most recently led a resurvey of parts of Sarah Furnace Cave and then a survey of many, many new parts of Sarah Furnace Cave, a picture of which is not on the screen right now. If you know that cave, it's as Bert said a little bit ago, its volume might fit inside of the rim of that cave that's on the screen. But it is an extraordinary maze cave, an extremely unique and special cave, has over 10 miles of passages. And that makes it the longest cave in Pennsylvania and the Northeast. And so that was a huge project where digital survey, digital sketching was instrumental in helping keep that project going and being able to share the map as frequently as possible with the participants. Bert's a fellow of both the NSS and the Explorers Club. He started drafting cave maps in the 1980s using AutoCAD, and in the 2020s migrated from paper sketching to electronic sketching. The title of Bert's presentation this evening is Digital Sketching Overview of Paper versus Electronic Book and Sketch for Cave Survey. Bert? take it away.
Anybody seeing my presentation?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yes, I can see it.
It says I'm sharing.
I can see
Yes, can see it.
I see
All
it.
right. Good. All right. Well, my program tonight and really this entire series is not going to teach you how to start out sketching for cave survey. Really, the series assumes pretty much that you already have experience as a paper sketcher and bookkeeper. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the differences between paper and digital sketching and bookkeeping and the advantages and disadvantages of each, and try to give you an idea of what you're in for if you're thinking about making the switch to digital. But how to actually do the digital sketching will follow in the coming presentations by others in the coming weeks. When you start out sketching, your sketches probably look like crap, like mine did. I'm sure Aaron's did, everybody's did. Digital sketching is not going to change that. It is not a way to become a good sketcher faster. If anything, digital sketching, the ability, sketching in general, the ability to take what you see in the cave and transfer it to a two-dimensional either piece of paper or screen in plan view or in section, cross section or lateral section. That's a different skill that you need to acquire. It's only once you've got that skill down pat that you're ready to take on the additional burden of learning how to do all that on the computer digitally. Everybody knows how to work a pencil and paper, but the software and the hardware are an additional burden you have to learn. And at least in my opinion, it's a lot easier to learn it on paper than it is to learn it digitally. So if you're not a sketcher right now, my recommendation would be that you learn on paper, and only after you've got it down pat, move to digital. Another reason to start out on paper is because you never know when the electronics are going to get muddy or wet and stop working. If you've dragged a survey team into the cave for 3 hours and then get out your sketching gear to find that the tablet got smashed on the way in or that it got wet and it's not working, that is not the time you want to start learning how to plot with a compass and protractor, and how to learn to sketch with paper and pencil. You need to do that first. So what this series is about is transforming from manual paper sketching, paper and pencil, to digital. Once you can produce a good paper sketch, in my opinion, that's the time to start looking to do that transition if you want to. Later talks in this series are going to talk about how to do the digital sketching. I'm going to keep it at a 30,000 foot overview of what the differences are and whether to consider changing. The survey software I use is called TopoDroid. It runs on an Android phone or tablet. I think it's probably the most popular digital sketching software. And that's most of the examples I'm going to give are from this software called TopoDroid. So key to the whole thing is that your disto or your brick can communicate by Bluetooth with the tablet or with the phone. That's key to the whole thing. And then you can draw on the tablet or the phone with a stylus. I use an 8-inch tablet. The one I have right now I use is a Samsung Note Active 3. I used to use a Samsung Note 8. The important thing, though, is it has to have a stylus. You can't use a regular phone. And the software, TopoDroid or one of the other softwares, runs on that phone. So I'd like to give you just a little bit of a overview of the process here. When you set a station in the cave, you're going to shoot splay shots from that station. And those splay shots are typically going to go to the walls, although they can go to prominent features in the center of the passage too. But once you have those splay shots and download them on the tablet, then drawing the walls in is like playing connect the dots. Then you draw in the rest of the features. Then you're going to set the next station. And to do that, we typically do what's called a triple shot. That is 3 shots from, in this case, from A1 to A2. And if they are all within a certain tolerance of one another, they're all pretty close to one another, then the software will say, oh, that's not 3 splay shots, it's the next station. And it sets station A2. Then you're going to shoot your splay shots from A2 to find the walls and maybe some other features. Then play connect the dots, and then do the rest of your sketch, and then set A3 with another survey station, with another, triple shot. And again, splay shots, draw, and it continues just that way. From every station, you have more splay shots that lets you have your walls and some of the important features, and you finish the sketch that way. Now, cross sections can be done with splay shots too. I tend not to do them that way. I find it a little cumbersome in the TopoDroid software. I just draw them in as if it were on paper. But there is a mechanism to do them. And the last thing I'll say is for a profile, those splay shots you've done from all those stations can be used to create the profile too. You need splay shots to the ceiling and the floor. There are a lot of symbols you can use, both for area like water or for line types like a floor drop or a ceiling drop, or for individual items like a stalactite or a stalagmite, etc. What you'll see in this presentation is I don't use them. I find it takes longer to fiddle with the line types and finding the symbols and putting them in that it's not worth it. Other people who are giving presentations in this series like doing it that way, and they're going to tell you why that's better. I personally find that using the digital sketch almost like a piece of paper without those automatic symbols works better for me. But, whatever works for you. All right, so obviously there are a lot of changes to the sketcher's role in changing from paper to digital sketching and bookkeeping. But there's also going to be changes to how your survey team works. And you're going to have to cooperate with the survey team because their roles are different when you're sketching digitally than they are when you're sketching on paper. Your post-cave data processing is going to be different with digital sketching than it is with paper. And your survey, your cartography is going to be potentially quite different with digital sketching as opposed to paper. And finally, the way you archive the data is going to be different. One thing that is not going to work with digital sketching is if you're using Suntos. That just, it's technically possible to enter the Sunto data and into the tablet and then do digital sketch, but it largely defeats the purpose. And so in general, if you're doing digital sketching, you need to be using distos or bricks connected by Bluetooth. So what I want to do now is sort of let you see some of the advantages and disadvantages of digital sketching and bookkeeping as opposed to paper, and let you decide, are you going to go the traditional way, which is on paper, or maybe be a little edgy, get out with the kids and go digital. So this is just a list of some advantages and disadvantages to each that I've put. Green is an advantage, red is a disadvantage. In general, I divide this up into maybe 3 categories. At the top, above the dashed line, is sort of what I call the preparation part of it. It's before you get to the cave, and the preparation stuff is going to take quite an investment from you as a digital sketcher, either monetarily and more importantly in a learning curve to learn how to do this. In the center, between the 2 dashed lines, are the in-cave advantages and disadvantages. And here, once you're in the cave and you've overcome sort of that learning curve in the beginning, digital bookkeeping and sketch has all sorts of advantages. It's really quite more efficient and better than paper sketching and bookkeeping. And finally, at the bottom are the sort of post-cave data processing, post-trip stuff. And in that realm, digital sketch still has a way to go. There are advantages and disadvantages to each, but paper book and sketch and digital book and sketch, more or less, there's not a big advantage to one or the other, in my opinion. So I'd like to go through these one at a time, talking about the equipment that you need. This is the traditional equipment, right? Was used probably from the 1970s up through the early 2000s. You'd have a couple of pairs of distos. You'd have your sketchbook, a couple pencils, paper, and a fiberglass tape. you could get into that system for about $1,000. Most expensive part of that are a couple sets of distos. A lot of us for a long time then used a sort of hybrid system where the distos and the tape were changed out for, where the suntos and the tape were changed out for a pair of distos or a brick. This system, because of the expense of the distos of the brick, almost doubled the cost, about $2,000, but still using in this hybrid system, still using paper sketch and paper bookkeeping. And finally, full digital sketching and digital survey involves adding this tablet or phone. You also want a spare battery and cord and a spare stylus. I have my stylus tied on to the tablet with a length of fishing line, but it can still break. It can get wet. You can drop it down a crack and the fishing line could break, just like you always have a spare pencil for paper sketching, you want a spare stylus. The cost here is probably going to add about $500 for a tablet or and battery and a spare stylus. So digital is definitely more expensive. And when we come to the reliability of the equipment, well, this picture maybe says it all. Electronic equipment does not like mud and doesn't like water. Although maybe this picture doesn't say it all, because you've also got to get the equipment to the survey, and dragging it through the cave is something that a lot of tablets or phones don't particularly like. In addition, you can run out of juice, which is why you want that extra battery, or sometimes just software doesn't like me and it refuses to work. God forbid you're the sketcher who takes your team, right, for a couple hours into the cave, you break out your survey gear, and all of a sudden you're not doing digital sketch because something broke on the way in. So very important to have that experience doing paper sketch and the equipment for paper sketch as a backup. You know, the first 4 or 5 times I did digital sketch, I gave up on it probably 3 out of those times because I couldn't figure out how to make the software work. I'd worked down in the basement a couple of nights and out in the backyard trying to get it to learn the software, and there was something I didn't figure out, and I had to go back to the backup of paper on those trips. There is a big learning curve. When you learned paper sketch, you had to learn how to record the data and check your front sights versus the back sights, and how to plot with a protractor and a ruler, and how to do the actual sketching. Learn cave symbols, learn how to sketch to scale, where to start on the page so that the cave passage didn't run off the edge. There's a pretty steep learning curve to learn to become a good sketcher. But when you switch to digital, the learning curve is even steeper. You've got to learn how to use that software, and you can't be learning on the job and making the whole survey team wait while you try to learn how to work the software. you need to know ahead of time. You need to know how to capture a survey shot, to tell the software where the to and the from stations are. How do you record left, right, up, down data in the software? And other notes. What shot, or excuse me, what station did display shots come from? How do you sketch in the software, including any colors or symbols you're going to use? All this stuff is above and beyond what you need to know for paper sketching. So again, my recommendation is start with paper sketching, and only when you think you have that mastered, move to digital. Your survey team, as I mentioned, is going to have a learning curve too. They need to learn about triple shot front sights. They need, there's a debate about the need for left, right, up, downs with digital sketch. You will have from splay shots, the left wall, the right wall. You can do the ceiling. You can do the floor. Do you need separate left, right, up, down data? I tend not to use it, but if you're using a feature that takes that left, right, up, down data and makes it into a sort of three-dimensional view of the cave, for example, the way Compass does, then you want that left, right, up, down data, and your survey team is going to have to know how to record it. Where do you shoot splays? How do you shoot splays and when? How many splays should your survey team be shooting? And another thing they need to learn is superfluous shots. If you take some random shot with the disto and don't tell the sketcher, then when that data is downloaded onto the computer, the sketcher onto the tablet or the phone, the sketcher is going to say, hey, what is that shot? Is it meaningful or is it just superfluous? So if your survey team wants to know how far the side passage is, and they walk down to the side passage and take a shot, it's going to look like it came from one of your, it's one of your splay stage shots when it isn't. So you need to educate your survey team about superfluous shots. All right. There's also a little bit of confusion about backsights with digital survey. And this mostly comes from the fact that the current software will only talk to one survey instrument, one disto or one brick at a time. If you're shooting front sights with one instrument and back sights with another, then the problem is that you can't download the back sights at the same time as you download the front sights. What I typically wind up doing is waiting to the end of the survey, and then when we're coming out of the cave or once we've left the cave, download all the backsight data at that time, rather than switching the software to talk to one disto or the other while you're in the cave, which is time consuming and a little bit awkward. There's also a question about whether backsights are needed if you're doing a triple shot for the front sight. If you're doing a triple shot, 3 shots that agree within a pretty tight tolerance, then is there a need for a backsight? And the answer is yes, there is, because you can have 3 front sights that are all blundered and look like they're the same very easily. So you do need, for example, I've had a surveyor with a big magnet in their pocket, or a surveyor with a big headlamp, and they put their head right next to the instrument, and the azimuth is off because of the magnetic field generated by the headlamp. You can tie into the wrong station. Those are all blunders that can be repeated and wouldn't be caught by a triple shot. So yes, you need back sights, even though you're doing a triple shot front sight. The survey crew is going to need or may want to do their own checks from front sights to back sights. That's the way I prefer to do it. They'll have to clear the old data off the disto before starting. You want to avoid those superfluous shots on the back sights as well as the front sights. Sketcher's handwriting. Maybe you went to Catholic school and the nun rapped your knuckles if your handwriting wasn't so good. But most of us don't have that in our past. And there's some pretty awful handwriting from sketchers, and it makes it really difficult to interpret what the heck the data was supposed to be. The advantage of digital in downloading the data is that you can always read it. Let's talk about blunders in the survey data. Here, digital sketching really shines. This is a survey where the front sight azimuth and the back sight azimuth were off by 199 degrees. There's a 19-degree error, and the sketcher didn't catch it. That can't happen in a digital sketch and bookkeeping, because that data is downloaded, and it'll tell you if your triple shots don't agree. In this case, it turned out that when the sketcher was recording the data, they inverted two digits, made it 246 instead of 264, and that was the source of the error. Again, downloading the data prevents that kind of blunder. Another kind of blunder comes when you're transcribing paper survey data into your data reduction program, whether it's a spreadsheet or Compass or whatever that software is. If you have to type in the data, there's always a problem with miskeying data, and this is one of the most common blunders that I've seen. Also avoided by digital sketching and bookkeeping. Let's talk about plotting errors. The bane of any cartographer's existence is the sketchers who don't sketch to scale. But it's almost as bad when the sketcher makes a plotting error. Inside a cave, maybe you're in an uncomfortable place and you're trying to hurry because the survey team is waiting, and it's complicated anyway. It's easy to make an error in plotting. And if you make an error in your plotting, it's almost as bad as a sketcher who doesn't even try to sketch to scale. What's really nice about digital is that the software will take the data that's been uploaded by Bluetooth from the disto, and it will plot it automatically for you, as well as plot all your splay shots for you. There are no plotting errors with digital sketch. And By the way, it does it too in profile. There are no plotting errors, and it makes the data a lot more reliable. Let's talk about dimensions. Now, of course, paper sketchers can take splays and plot them and use that to accurately draw their sketch. But it takes a lot of time, and not very many paper sketchers are going to do that, at least not to a large extent. But those splays that we saw for digital sketching let you very accurately say where all the walls are throughout the cave, and features in the center of the passage as well. It makes for a much more accurate cave map. The sketch always runs off the paper edge. You know, it always happens. And once the sketch runs off the paper edge, you have to stop, get a new paper, number the page, replot, and it just slows everything down. Or you start on the wrong place on the page. You should have started here. You started here, and when the cave turns left, now you have to restart your sketch on the same page. It really slows things down. Now, some paper sketchers will take in a clipboard to be able to use like an 8.5 by 11 piece of graph paper to sketch on. But taking a 10 by 16 piece of clipboard is sort of bulky in your pack, and it's a tough to use in the passages. What's nice about digital sketching is it never goes off the edge of the page. So this is a film of about a video of about half a mile of passage, about 80 stations, and it's never gone off the page. Digital sketching, the page is as big as you want. So good sketching is slow on paper, and I'm not going to pretend that good sketching is fast digitally, but it's a lot faster than it is on paper. And the reasons are some of the stuff we've talked about. You don't have to write down the survey data. It's comes in automatically. You don't have to plot because that's automatic. Drawing the walls is like playing connect the dots. It's easy. You don't have to estimate distances. You don't have to switch pages. The profile is also automatic. So good sketching is not super fast, but boy, it's a lot faster than paper. So now let's move on to some of this stuff that's post-survey processing. Data entry. Data entry can be tedious. It takes a long time, especially if you've got a lot of data. And even with somebody reading the data off to you, it's prone to errors. Now, entering the survey data from digital sketch is not as easy as simply pushing a button while you're drinking a beer after the cave trip. There's a lot to it. You've got to take the format that comes out of the survey program, including the shot data, the backsite data, the length units, the splay shot data, the LRUDs, any comments, maybe there's shot quality information, and you've got to get that into the format that your data reduction software is going to use. And although TopoDroid and the other programs say they go into formats that are useful for example, for Compass that I use, the long and the short of it is the software isn't that good yet. I find that when I'm transferring data into Compass from TopoDroid, I have to do a lot of manipulation of the data to get it into the right format. And it makes it so it's not that much quicker than doing uh, entering the data. I say there's no direct cartography in paper sketch, and there's a possibility of direct cartography in digital sketch. What I mean by direct cartography is being able to draw a cave map in the cave from the survey data directly without having to go back outside, reduce the data, and then put it into a drawing program like Inkscape or Illustrator. The One of the leading softwares for doing this is called Therion. This comes from their website. There are a bunch of line types and symbols like these that you use while you're doing your sketch, and then Therion can draw this kind of cave map for you while you're in the cave. There is a whole nother big learning curve to do this. And so it's difficult to learn. And frankly, to my eye, these maps don't look very good. There's not the sort of artistic sense to them that I like to see in my cave maps. But there's other people who are going to be doing these presentations in this series who like this and think it's a great thing because it gets the map done. Whereas when you have to take the data back outside, you often have to wait weeks and months and years to get a cave map done. So there are people who are going to advocate for it, and there are advantages and disadvantages. But there are in-between options too. You can take the sketch that comes out of something like TopoDroid, and with very little cleanup, you can turn that into a final map, especially if the sketch is good. I don't tend to do that. I tend to trace it. Um, um, is how I do my cartography, but different strokes for different folks. Let's talk about archiving your data. A big project is going to generate a lot of paper. It's, it's difficult to scan, to copy, takes up space. It's a pain to archive. Whereas digital data is easy to archive. One of the problems, though, is that paper lasts forever, right? There's 2,000-year-old scrolls on paper that are still extant. And yet my survey data from 20 years ago, I can't find, or it's on floppy disks, or I've got survey data from a cave in West Virginia that was entered on IBM punch cards. So there are a lot of disadvantages to the format and the media for digital archiving, and paper is wonderful that way. So advantages and disadvantages to each. Let's talk about survey projects and whether they like digital survey. This is the map of Mammoth Cave at 50 feet to the inch, spread out on the floor of the basketball court at Caverna High School in Park City, Kentucky. A couple of years ago, CRF Eastern Ops does not encourage digital sketch. Rumor has it that the first person to do digital sketch in Mammoth Cave for CRF would come out of the cave and then transcribe all the digital data onto survey pages to hide the fact that they were doing digital sketch. I don't know if that's true or not, but the point is, recently, they've become a little bit more accepting of digital sketch, but there are projects and people who don't want to have to deal with the extra hassle of processing digital cave data after you get out of the cave. This is Helm's Deep in Tennessee, now the sixth longest cave in the nation, over 70 miles. Surveyed all within the past 4 years. And Helm's Deep will give you a hard time if you want to do paper sketch. They love digital sketch. It's more and more cave projects, big cave projects are going this way. But right now, check with your project before you make this switch because they may encourage it or not encourage it. I myself don't like to do digital sketch in tight passages for a couple of reasons. One is you can't really shoot very many splays, so it doesn't give you that much of an advantage because the passage is so small. But the other is that you need a line of sight between your tablet or your phone and the disto or the brick in order to do a Bluetooth upload of the data. And in these small passages, you often don't have line of sight. And so in many cases, I'll just go back to paper sketch in these kind of passages. There are a lot of people who don't like to use digital sketch in wet passages because of the obvious possibility of losing their tablet or their phone and dunking it. And last, let me talk about the quality of your digital sketch or your paper sketch. It really depends on the sketcher's skill. And that skill can be on paper or it can be digitally. A good sketch is a good sketch, but you can have lousy sketch in either one. We are not yet at the time when drones are going to fly through the cave and survey it automatically. We haven't reached that point yet. So until we do, quality sketch doesn't depend on whether it's digital or paper. It really depends on the skill of the surveyor. And with that, I'm sort of done. And Aaron, we have time for questions?
We absolutely have time for questions. There has been a very healthy discussion in the chat during your excellent presentation. And so, yeah, thank you for that. Very informative. I love learning new things, and I learned quite a few new things with your presentation. So thank you for sharing with us. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask, you can unmute yourself and ask, or put your question into the chat.
Well, that presentation must have been pretty good. Nobody has any questions left.
I gotta figure out how to.
This is Roy Jameson, if you can hear me. I came in late. I noticed it was being recorded. Is it going to be possible to get a link for where the recording is?
Aaron, I'll throw that one to you.
Yes, these were the recordings of the presentations in this series will be put on the NSS Survey and Cartography section YouTube page. And so pretty much as soon as the recording's ready, we'll get it up there and then we'll let folks know that it's available.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm seeing a question in the chat. I think it's a really good one, especially considering that I think we might have a person who can answer the question. The question is, what features do you wish TopoDroid had in the future? And just looking through here. Marco, are you still on the call?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, welcome. Thank you very much for joining the call, Marco. So,
Oh, thanks you for your call, for your presentation. That was very interesting.
so this could be an audience where folks could share with you directly right now if they have any immediate wishes for TopoDroid. So for those who don't know, Marco Corvi is on the call. He's the one who wrote and supports TopoDroid that many of us use in digital sketch and survey.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing Rachel replied and said TopoDroid needs a feature where someone who knows how to use it materialize. Okay, troubleshoots whatever I've screwed up. So basically, Rachel, you're saying that there should be an AI built into Marco's application. Marco, any plans for AI in TopoDroid?
No, she wants a real person.
Oh,
not yet.
So she wants Marco to show up in the cave whenever she has an issue.
I can add a comment to the presentation, to the speaker. Maybe he doesn't know. The presentation was very good and very well compared the advantage and disadvantage of paper surveying and digital surveying. I used to do paper surveying long time ago. Backside, there is a possibility to use the first spray as a backside and have the app noised and make a check immediately. And I agree with him about cross-section. The reason is that that's awkward. The reason is that cross-section disturb the plan view and the profile view. To have, when they have many of them, you have to move them around. I haven't found a solution for that yet. That's it.
Thank you, Marco. I didn't know about that backsite provision. I'll have to study up on that.
Yeah, that was not my idea. Actually, many of the features in TopoDroid are just ideas, suggestions that I got from users. So, I don't know who thanks for it, but I don't remember. That's it.
Okay, there's another question, and this one's also for you, Marco. Does the latest version of TopoDroid support pairing with multiple distos?
Okay, from quite some time there was options to do the survey with two devices, two distros actually, and to switch quickly between the two is not a common option because it requires a good coordination between the shooter and with the two distros and the sketcher, the person who has to put rod in an end. But it's possible to set the app to work with the 2D stocks. As a matter of fact, the app connects with only one dist at a time. Otherwise, it could be a mess of data coming if they come at the same time from the two devices. But there's this option to set it for 2D stocks and to switch from one to the other quickly.
Okay, thank you for that.
Which one do you want? Sure. Hey Bert, this is Ray. I was just wondering if the battery of any of your electronic devices has run out during a survey, and how did you handle that?
I have run out of battery on both distos and on tablet while I'm surveying. I know others have sort of systems set up where they can recharge their disto from a light battery. I don't have that. Fortunately, we had two distos, so we made do with one. When the tablet ran out, I've got a separate battery pack that I can plug into it. The key there is you have to remember the cord to plug it in. And I have a relatively short cord. And then I have a lanyard on the back of the tablet so that I can hook the battery to the tablet so you don't have to carry both separately. And that battery, lasted me the another hour that I needed to finish up the trip. If that answers your question, Red.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Bert, are
Hey
you seeing
Bert,
the
George
chat?
Venny here. Nicely done. I saw a question in the chat. Someone had asked about LiDAR survey, a presentation to the Balkans that happened recently. That's actually a student of mine in Greece, and she's going to be presenting a talk at the International Congress on using the LiDAR function on an iPhone and comparing it to a high-end LiDAR device. And I can just say, that the results are pretty favorable so far. So just to answer that question and make people aware of some of the things coming out.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, George. It's pretty fascinating that you can take a device as small as a phone into a cave and make a LiDAR representation. I think that technology is probably just going to get better and better. I don't know about
Yeah,
you
it,
guys,
it,
but
it still doesn't compare to in terms of the level of detail of like the Faro unit, the high-end unit she was comparing to. But the fact that she's getting comparable data is pretty amazing. I use an Android myself, so I don't speak iPhone. I don't know if there's similar technology at this point on an Android, but if there isn't, I expect it's coming. So it's just fabulous what's going on. And again, Bert, thank you so much. I'm an old school surveyor, and I really appreciate this overview.
You're welcome, George.
Bert, another question. what file type for your sketches are you exporting from TopoDroid, and where do you import that file to do your cartography?
TopoDroid will export a number of different formats. I take it as an SVG, which is sort of a generic vector graphic file. And I'm winding up taking the SVG and putting it into Adobe Illustrator. But it'll work with, for example, Inkscape, which is a free version of similar to Illustrator. But I use SVG personally. You're going to hear from other people, in this series that hopefully do things differently.
Okay, going back up, we might have missed a couple of comments in here. So Nancy says, I wish all the great features like lines and points could be downloaded into Adobe Illustrator. And so I think this is a related to my question. And that is that if you're using, and Marco, if you're still on, maybe you could speak to this as well. If you're using the built-in symbols and you go to Therion, then it works really well. But to do an SVG, and I think even a PDF export, for that to go cleanly into Adobe Illustrator, you're going to have to just use the wall sketch line and the free sketch pen, and that's what you do, Bert, right?
That's correct. That's what I do.
Yeah. So, Marco, is it possible in the future that the symbols that are intended for Therion could in some way be exported so that they're visible in Adobe Illustrator?
Symbols are exported as a as a polyline, as a line, not as a symbols, as an abstract symbols as in Therion. So they are, if I remember well, I'm not sure because I don't use SVG. Sorry, I must. I'm a Therion user. Maybe they are abstracted in a marker and then they are exported as marker, but I'm not sure about that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, we're grateful.
I did
that
it, but
TopoDroid even
I don't
exists.
remember all the details of the software.
I'm sure it's big and powerful. It's really good. Really like it. There's another question. Lower parts of the cave walls are undermined and have an extension, but are covered by sediments. Should we draw only the upper walls of the cave, or should the extension be included in the lower parts? Lower undermined part is only a few centimeters high. Only a tape measure can indicate this extension. Is he drawing the walls of a cave, or is he drawing an expanse that cannot be entered? I'm not sure if that was one of the, this is WAFA, WAFAA, asking this. And when I think of drawing something other than walls, it has to do with a profile or a cross section where indicating sediment or mud or breakdown instead of, say, bedrock. But Bert, do you have any comments on that? Which is basically, if we reinterpret the question a little bit, what is important to keep in mind when indicating what the wall material might be?
Oh, that's not how I interpreted the question. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm going to go back here. On this, I interpreted Wafa's question, and thank you, Wafa, as for example, let's see, I don't know how to zoom this. This area under here is all half a foot high, 6 inches high, and these are 2 foot high passages around the outside. And so I show that half a foot high area when I do sketch. That's how I interpreted Wafa's question.
With your sketch, that makes a lot more sense now. I can see that. Yeah, it's an interesting challenge when sketching plan, to be able to interpret the symbols if you're looking at the sketch, or using the symbols when you're making the sketch for a passage that probably only a couple, or area of the cave where probably only a couple people could ever fit. And so it takes a little bit of imagination there, I think. But that's also where that cross section of profile could be really helpful.
Yep, sorry, I don't have cross section here to show you.
Okay. All right. Do others have questions? Is there anything we haven't covered that's in the chat? I'm trying to scroll through.
Hi, so I'm incredibly new to surveying, but I just wanted to know how does a disto work to make a measurement?
Well, Carl, there are certainly people who understand it better than I do. But a Leica disto is manufactured for measuring distance and inclination only. And there's some very people who are a lot smarter than I figured out how to add accelerometers and some integrated circuits in there to modify those to measure azimuth too, right? Magnetic heading, azimuth. And somebody else can explain how that works. I think there's stuff on the internet that explains how that was done with distos, and there's probably stuff on how it was done with bricks or some of the other things that instruments that have been created to do that.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Other questions? All right. I'm gonna share my screen again quickly here. Let's see. All right. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing a slide with the upcoming presentations on it. I'll assume that's a yes.
Yes, I see it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can see it, Aaron.
Appreciate it. So the next presentation in the series is going to be on April 9th, and that's going to be Derek Bristol talking about digital sketching versus paper sketching. In the presentation today, Bert gave us a broad overview. And I suspect that in Derek's presentation, we're going to be taken a little bit further into the details of what the tools are and how we would use them. On April 24th, I'm going to talk about the data that comes from digital sketching and surveying and how it could be processed into a cave map, as well as how you can bring it back into the cave with you so that you know where to go and what to do when you're surveying a cave that takes more than one trip. This requires or can utilize several different software tools. And so I'll give you guys some pointers, including using some AI, on how to make that really easy and quick. On May 8th, Bo Gergel is going to talk about his personal experience from going from paper sketching to digital. Bo is a very experienced paper sketcher. Bo is an inventor of several cave survey symbols, some of which you guys might be using. He's an experienced cartographer, and only recently is he transitioning to digital. So I think he'll have a really interesting story to share. On May 22nd, Christian DeSalle is going to talk about sketching in TopoDroid for Therion, which is a little bit of what we were talking about a bit ago with Marco. And so Christian and a number of other folks are able to update cave maps extremely rapidly whenever they use the combination of TopoDroid and Therion. And so Christian's going to talk about that. On June 5th, Dan Garreau is going to talk about advanced TopoDroid tips and tricks. Dane is very, very prolific caver, and he is making maps at a very high rate. And we'll learn from him on how he's using TopoDroid for that. And then this current series will wrap up on June 19th when John Zetterberg talks with us about overall project planning and management with an emphasis on digital sketch and survey. And then we'll take a break for a couple months, and hopefully we'll have the fall series lined up for September and beyond. And so with that, does anyone have any additional questions, comments?
Hey, Aaron, Derek here. So I'm up next. I just wanted to comment that I know the topic for my talk sounds an awful lot like Bert's talk. So great talk, by the way, Bert. I just wanted to chime in and say I wanted to attend tonight. Just make sure that I don't intend to. I tried to avoid too much overlap with what Bert discussed. So I'll try to avoid any duplication. So I'll try to cover some things that Bert didn't cover and go into a little more depth on what makes a good quality digital sketch, and where digital sketching has some advantages and where paper sketching maybe has some advantages.
Okay, great. Thank you, Derek. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Okay, so let's see. Any more comments here in the chat? I'm not seeing any. Okay, any other questions, comments? Bert, thank you again for kicking off this series. A great talk. And looking forward to seeing everybody back for the next one.
Thanks, Aaron, for putting it together.
Thanks, everyone.